specific numbers, but it was somewhere in over 1,000 or so VMs that are running in this space right now. And you know, there's really two ways in which that's possible, that's made possible. Major way is that we're not supporting the underlying operating systems running in this space. We can focus on delivering the infrastructure as well as the more advanced services that our lines of business are asking to aid in their journey in the DevOps space. And so that's how it's done. The second way in which is, anyone going to be offended if I tell you that we do not like writing documentation and we found a better way to do it? And if you want to hear about it, it's this. It's the mindset of the no docs required. We found also that ourselves, most of us, I have one person on the team who does love doing documentation, but the other four despise it. YouTube has kind of brought this on to us that the developers, especially very busy and coming into a whole new world, don't want to be reading docs, don't want to be even following guides online. So we created this set of videos and go with a no docs required policy that we point every new customer into the environment to. Short videos. I have an example of one right here, and we find these to be very, very beneficial to getting them up to speed and reducing the number of calls that come into my team. Let's do it.
This video will demonstrate how to access True VPC using a Chrome or Firefox web browser. Enter the URL that was provided to you when you registered for a compute block. On the warning screen, click Proceed Anyway. Repeat this for the next warning. And finally, enter your username and password to complete this login process.
It's that simple, literally. And that's a very, very basic example, but the idea is we don't have any videos that are longer than 2.5 minutes. And they're all posted on our social media site inside Prudential, available to every person who comes into the block. And that, as I said, is cut down drastically on the number of people that we need to set up Webex sessions with to explain things when they find out. Especially as new features come out in our release, that we can get them out there and the videos are being watched over and over again by very large portions of our population to disseminate information. And making them, we don't have any secret sauce, it's just a person with a microphone and capturing the screenshot, but it's gone a long, long way to aiding the troubleshooting process. Right, no doubt. So, the service catalog is probably the most important and valuable piece of the offering that we have in the ProVPC environment today. And what this is built on vRealize, and Jay, forgive me, I can't get the names right, they change too often for me, but you kind of get the idea. I call it VCAC, VCAC. The idea is, though, we introduced a brand new portal to our developers, and very quickly realized that they, like it or don't like it, are used to it, and they don't want multiple portals. So the way in which we author and introduce services is through this portal. And it's sometimes cumbersome, sometimes native. Deploying OSI is very simple, straightforward in here. Doing some of the more advanced, complex things, such as pulling bearer tokens out, some of the APIs, they're also buried in here. A little bit more complicated to write. But the idea is, and we found, if it's all through this interface, our development community is a lot happier of getting information. Of course, there's the APIs in the background, but there's still the documentation around the APIs that's available in here. So if you need an interface to get internally, you come to here. If you need an interface, and we're in the very near future doing this, a front-ending external platform as a service applications or external burst capability to clouds, you're going to come through this portal, and it's going to be seamless. The user, whether or not it's happening in here, or this is nothing other than a front-end shelling out to a vCenter orchestrator script, thinks everything comes through this portal. From a marketing perspective, it works, and from an ease of use perspective, they know one URL, and that works for them as well. The second is really the glue behind the entire offering. As I said in the beginning, and I'll reiterate it at the end of this, the idea is automate everything wherever possible. And other folks call it infrastructure as code. These things now are kind of in our life and taking over the way in which we manage infrastructure and higher up in the stack. Well, with our ProVPC, what we did is leverage vCenter Orchestrator to handle any number of different operations that weren't natively available in VCAC. And it ended up being a lot of things that were in VCAC that we can achieve very, very seamlessly through vCenter Orchestrator. It may or may not be the most favorable, most beneficial platform in order to write code on, but to give you just a list of a couple of brief examples of things that we're doing through Orchestrator. A lot of vCenter operations, vSphere operations, provisioning resource pools, carving up each of the individual blocks that are being created. We're doing all the automation around our network provisioning, and microsegmentation is being done through vCenter Orchestrator. On-demand firewall rules, load balancing is being done through vCenter Orchestrator. All the automation through APIs to provision blocks in VCAC, as well as blueprint management being done through here. We're talking about REST APIs, PowerShell calls out to create objects in Active Directory, register DNS. All of it happens to be front-ended and controlled through the vCenter Orchestrator, integrated with VCAC. Network virtualization. And the key here is, and this is kind of interesting, that making network work for you. No one on my team is a network engineer, and one of the things that we found is that just by being creative and thinking outside the box and thinking outside the confines of traditional networking, you can get a lot of things done in a really quick and easy manner. And so in our case, we happen to be leveraging vCenter, vShield in order to deliver the network isolation and microsegmentation that's needed for our environment. And as I said, that's all done through REST APIs controlled through vCenter Orchestrator. The application services. This is an interesting one that sometimes is a little bit of a philosophical debate with our development teams. I have one business who has a very complex application to install, and they promised me that the only way and the best way to do this, and the fully supported way, is to give them a blank operating system, let them install all of the applications they want on it, and then turn that into a catalog item, a blueprint, and they'll deploy from there, and use their APIs to call it from there and move forward with it. Part of our mindset and methodology as IT people now, especially as we're climbing a little higher in that stack, is to encourage best practices. And to that end, we try and always focus on creating blueprints so that it's repeatable. And when we decide to change out an operating system, an underlying operating system, seamless to the development community. This is a really hard thing to convince people of, especially because in the past, there's this line of demarcation between business and IT. And IT delivered them an operating system, and then business went ahead and did what they needed to on top of it. Encouraging them to think of applications and think of them more as blueprints as opposed to an operating system and an application as two separate components. It's a tough thing to do, but where you can push it, because it makes life easier for the business as time goes on. So the takeaways before we get into the Q&A part of it is the DevOps approach with the service catalog. One of the things that we realized is that things are changing very rapidly in this space, and you don't have the rules around you can't make production changes during the day, or it has to wait for a high impact weekend. That doesn't exist in this environment. Sometimes we get a call from a business partner saying, I need this feature, and I have the app vendor coming on site at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Can you have it there available for me? And the answer is yes. And in order to make that happen in a reliable and reproducible way, we follow a DevOps methodology in introducing things into our service catalog, being able to rapidly roll forward and roll back changes if it breaks something, as well as run automated testing against things that are going into our catalog. Maintain simple classes of users. Early on, we had this grand vision of probably 10 or 15 different roles within the Proof VPC environment for our user population. And we quickly realized that we couldn't explain any of that to the business, so there's two flavors of it. You're an administrator or a user, and with the administrator, to do everything, the user can see what he or she creates, and that's all. It works. Leverage vRealize automation catalog for everything. This was about 3 or 4 slides ago, our service catalog. It's a front end for everything, keeps the marketing simple, keeps the customer coming back to us for more because it's a single unified interface. Extend VRA service catalog with VCO. Don't get hooked on or stuck in the idea that because I can't do this natively with the VCAC catalog, I can't offer it or I can't provide it to my business partners. Where that comes up, go ahead and look into things like a VCO in order to extend your capabilities offering DevOps-related services to lines of business. Automate, automate, automate. This is the one that talks to, I've got a family at home, I like to be home before something, go to bed, but if I have to stay around and patch and reboot ESX service, it doesn't happen. Put some time into it, folks, and figure out a way to make that happen automated. So at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're asleep, your hosts are getting rebooted and patched, and you come back in, environment is stable, and you got sleep. Be creative with networking. The limits are often self-imposed. As I said here, in our looking just at the vShield product, only for a short period of time, 3 or 4 months, we were able to find out and really kind of come to some things that historically we thought were impossible. You can get past a lot of those things in network virtualization, and encourage you to explore it and leverage it where you can. Begin with test dev support to reshape the culture. The question we get from our business partners day in and day out is, when is this going to production? When can we use this to run our line of business application? And I don't have a great answer for them yet because there's a lot of things that have to change. But the only way to get the business partners asking for this in production was to introduce it to them in a test dev space where there was no liability with the environment not being available for them to run production workload. Build momentum with many small wins, in addition to acknowledging the sacrifice our families make. This is probably the last and probably single most important thing about this. If you're thinking about bringing in a private cloud, hybrid cloud, doing the whole DevOps world with it, small wins are key. This was about an 18-month or so long project, and we initially saw it as a huge hill, a mountain rather, that seemed insurmountable. In the background here is a board, and on that board is what we came to realize is a much better way to progress. Breaking our giant mountain into these tiny little chunks that we could accomplish small wins day in and day out. And every day is on the board, we come up to it. When we finish something, you take a marker, you go up and you cross it out, and we go ahead and clap for you. It's a really small thing, but what I found is it kept the team really motivated, because early on, you just come in and after working 3 or 4 weeks on something and saying, I'm just not getting anywhere. Break that into a small subset of tasks so that you can at least get a feeling, a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day or end of 2 days. And it keeps you motivated and coming back for more. And you find that, at least what I found, is that the duration of tasks started taking a fraction of the time when you broke it into smaller pieces, because you didn't sit there and think about how long it was going to take to accomplish this or that. And getting that pat on the back and being able to give your teams a job well done on this small subset went a heck of a lot longer way than waiting 3 or 4 months for something to happen and saying, hey, job well done. You get that acknowledgement only once at the end of it. So that's kind of my insight, and I hope we have time here because I wanted to turn it over to you guys and answer any questions that you may have. Or I can, or turn them over to Jay if they're hard.
Yeah, there are mics in the center as well if you want to get up there and so everybody can hear you, or I can repeat it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
So you mentioned private cloud. Did you experiment at all with public cloud, sort of a hybrid model, or
Sure. The question is, you mentioned private cloud here. Did we experiment? Did we look at explore public cloud? The answer is yes. And I think in some of the keynotes today, that's coming out loud and clear, at least from VMware's side, that there is no private public cloud. It's all hybrid cloud. And we're finding very similar in our world. There are certain things that we can't fulfill internally because either it's not cost efficient or the timing that it's needed for is a very short period of time. So in fact, we are very actively exploring the hybrid cloud and offering it through these interfaces as well.
If I was to add to that, I think when you